Welcome to Agent Noob everyone, and to a long-awaited video on food upgrades in Age of Empires 4. If you haven't watched the previous videos already, we've virtually covered all fundamental economy technologies so far, including lumber camp upgrades, mining camp upgrades, the frequency of refreshing lumber camps, when to double or triple mining camps, and when to get survival techniques before and after the Season 1 update. Today though, we'll be covering the only remaining general food technologies, namely horticulture, fertilization, and precision crossbreeding to finish the series of eco upgrades. Before we jump into it, most people watching the channel aren't subscribed, and it would help me a lot if you did to support future content. Thanks everyone. Okay, with that out of the way, let's take a look at our final set of eco upgrades. Alright, horticulture, fertilization, and precision crossbreeding all follow the same pattern as the other eco technologies, as their efficiency upgrade, research time, and resource costs are all the same. That said, there are additional nuances to the generic food technologies. The aforementioned upgrades work on all food sources, including boars, sheep, deer, berries, and fish. For example, I did a quick test with 10 villagers on berries with and without horticulture, and, as expected, it improved their gather rates by roughly 14%, gathering all food from the berries roughly 45 seconds quicker. That said, for the sake of simplicity, I will be only using farmers to test the food technologies, and I'll do this for a few reasons. One, we typically don't prioritize food upgrades until we have begun to transition to farms as our main source of food, as we'd usually pick up Wheelbarrow first to help with everything, and perhaps survival techniques if we can secure multiple deer or boar camps. Two, all of the initial food sources run out very quickly, which often means that we'll need to farm to get the most out of these technologies anyway. And 3, setting up a group of 8 farmers per mill is the perfect test case, as it is a very typical scenario you can recreate in your games as well. Oh, and one final thing. Although I will be only testing farmers, you should take the number of villagers collecting food as your main takeaway. So, for example, if we end up determining that horticulture is worth it to pick up at 20 farmers, then you should be able to pick up horticulture if you have, say, 5 on berries, 10 on sheep, and 5 on farms for a total of 20 villagers on food, and not necessarily all 20 on farms specifically. Even though the gather rates and certain walk time mechanics are slightly different, the rule of thumb should not be affected. Okay, now that we've covered the fundamentals, let's get right into the tests. Although I mentioned that we'll be testing horticulture, fertilization, and precision crossbreeding, I'll start with Wheelbarrow first. As a reminder, Wheelbarrow costs 50 wood and 150 gold, takes 90 seconds to research at the mill, and increases the carry capacity of villagers by 5 and their movement speed by 15%. Well, you'd think that Wheelbarrow would be good with the carry capacity bonus and all that walking around that farmers do, but farming could very well be the only thing that Wheelbarrow doesn't positively impact significantly, as we see a measly 1% improvement in our food collection rate. I purposefully didn't include payback times here, as Wheelbarrow is useful in a plethora of other things that I will explore in a standalone video. For now, all you have to know is that, even though you should have already researched Wheelbarrow way before you even began farming, it virtually has no effect on it. Let's move on to horticulture. Horticulture costs 75 wood and 175 gold, takes 75 seconds to research at the mill, and increases villagers' gather rate for food by 15%. After I ran the tests, we observe a healthy 12% improvement in our food gather rate, as the walk time between the farms and the mill expectedly reduces the efficiency of the technology. We can see a 177 food per minute improvement when we get to 40 farmers, which is very solid for its cheap cost. Looking at the payback times though, I don't think you need to wait that long. Depending on how defensive you're going to play in your game based on your civilization and map, you could begin justifying the upgrade at roughly the 25 villager mark. Also, since the first upgrade is cheap, you could even go for 15 villagers on food if you know that you're safe and will be booming, but I recommend against this in most games. Fertilization has the same theoretical plus 15% as well as research time as horticulture, but costs 150 wood and 350 gold in the Castle Age. As expected, the numbers look worse, but they aren't too bad. Practical improvement we get roughly hovers at plus 10%, so the food per minute improvement is slightly worse than horticulture. The payback time looks decent around the 30 to 40 food villager mark, which is honestly not uncommon in the Castle Age. You could research it past the 40 villager mark if you want better payback times, but it may not be necessary given that the flow of resources is higher at this stage of the game. This will depend on your appetite for risk and aggression based on your playstyle. Finally, precision crossbreeding. As is the case with all Imperial Age upgrades, precision crossbreeding costs a whopping 300 wood and 700 gold in the Imperial Age, while maintaining the same plus 15% and research time as horticulture and fertilization. Now, if you've watched my previous economy videos, you'd know that the Imperial Age upgrades, without exception, are awful and should almost never be picked up. Well, let's see if precision crossbreeding, the final generic Imperial Age eco upgrade we're yet to cover, is the exception here. Well, the numbers do look worse than both horticulture and fertilization, of course, but honestly, I expected much worse. First of all, we maintained the same 10% improvement in the gather rate just like fertilization, which was a surprise to me. And second, the 7-minute payback time at 40 farmers is honestly not bad at all. In fact, it's not uncommon to surpass 40 farmers in games that go long into post-Imperial Age, and an extra 7 minutes in an hour plus long game isn't bad at all. But here's the most important thing that we simply cannot overlook. Farms have infinite food. This does come with two critical implications. One, infinite food in farms means that the improvements in gather rates are constant and will remain the same no matter how long you gather from the resource. And two, the resource not depleting in the first place is the most critical factor here. If you've watched my previous economy videos, you'll know that I'm a very harsh critic of set Imperial Age upgrades. For example, the main reason behind my criticism of the Imperial mining technology was the fact that you'd run out of stone or gold to mine on the map by the time you even get to pay back the initial cost of the upgrade, effectively making your investment useless. The Imperial Age wood upgrade shares this similar problem, but to a lesser extent. Villagers do get less efficient gathering wood from trees, and yes, wood does run out quite commonly in Age of Empires 4. But that's not the case here. The high cost of the technology is justified in this scenario because your farms never run out. And after 5 to 7 minutes in typical late game scenarios, you'll straight up enjoy an additional 10% boost to your food eco with no strings attached. No ifs or buts, an extra 10%. So I'll be damned, unlike any other Imperial Age eco technology, precision crossbreeding is one that you will likely pick up in most games and maps that go to late Imperial Age, as it is a well-balanced technology in my opinion. Heck, food technologies across the board could be the most balanced techs in the game that do not require further tweaks. I do hope though that the devs will take a deeper look into the other Imperial Age eco upgrades to make them at least situationally viable. Alright, now that we've gone through the tests, let's summarize our findings as usual through some rules of thumb. Obviously, you'll need to assess how safe you are and how greedy you can be based on your civilization matchup and map generation, but you should typically aim to pick up horticulture at roughly 25 to 30 villagers, fertilization at 30 to 40 villagers, and precision crossbreeding after the 40 villager mark. Your payback times should hover around 3 to 4 minutes, 45 minutes, and 6 to 7 minutes for each technology respectively. Once again, take away these rules of thumb as a number of villagers on food and not just farmers. Certain civilizations do get additional farming or other gather bonuses, so you could be slightly more aggressive in your timings based on your civilization selection. Otherwise, you can safely adhere to these rules for most games, maps, and matchups. Well, that's all you need to know about the food technologies in Age of Empires 4. This concludes my series of covering all generic food upgrades in Age of Empires 4, so I will be finally able to circle back to making a standalone video on Wheelbarrow specifically and summarize our findings there. Hence, be sure to like and subscribe to not miss out on that video or any other future Age of Empires content. And thank you once again to all my Patreons for your continued support. As always, thanks for watching everyone. Don't forget to pick up your food technologies when you transition to farms, and see you all in the next one.